Pop in, say hi. If you've never come into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and this is my second live show that I do each week. It's the main live show that I have done ever since I started going in front of the camera here on YouTube. If you've never hung out with me before, I have been on YouTube for, it's going to be my 14th year this year. I can't believe that I've been on YouTube and my channel has survived the storms. That main storm being myself, in all honesty, but 14 years, and it's been about 12 years since I have been actually coming in live. And it took me a while to come in front of the camera, but it is in that practice. It is in just showing up and being consistent, not being perfect, but being consistent. And if you're lucky enough to pick up a few lessons along the way to help you find a place, find that comfortability. Is that a word? Comfortability for yourself that you can come in anytime you want, not have to worry about your hair, your makeup, the way you dress, but understanding it's what you personally bring to the table. Hello, Owen. And I'd like to think I bring a little bit something to the table. I may be a small channel in the moment. I may be a small channel for the rest of my life because I plan on being here till the rest of my life, till I'm 114 years old. That's a goal. And I think this day and age that we live in, that's a reasonable goal to reach for, especially, if you feel that energy of being physically, mentally, and emotionally well. It takes work, it takes attention, and it takes understanding that we're not all perfect, but we can learn by the mistakes that we make, right? And through those mistakes, you know how often painful mistakes are, that lots of times we do not want to deal with that again. So we get on top of it. We try to resolve the problems. And I think I've been doing that for the most part of my life, little bit slow in the process. But if you hang out with me, you know I do everything in baby steps. And I think that's okay, right? I still am here 14 years later. And I could tell you, this channel should have disappeared, should have gone extinct on me, should have crashed on me at least a half a dozen or 10 times. You know, like I said, it's just in that determination and in that consistency of just showing up and trusting. If you just show up and do the best that you can, stay interested, keep learning in the process, learning from your mistakes, right? That you'll get a little bit better. And I would think Owen and Andrew would be a good judge of that. If I've gotten any better in my, I don't know, in the way I connect with the people in my lives. They are here every Sunday. I have a second live show podcast that I do every week. It's a Monday to Friday, and I go live. Sometimes it's usually at least an hour long, but it's a little bit heavier. It's in sharing. It's one of those things that when I said in being consistent and learning from your mistakes. So I shared that in that show, just to be that evidence for other people who might feel that, they might try stepping into those waters of being a content creator, a thought leader, right? YouTube superstar, because that's how I started here, is I wanted to be a YouTube superstar. I thought it was going to put the roof over my head, but I'm not too sure if I'm disappointed in the fact that I've still had to put the roof over myself anyway, right? Because of the gift of being part of that Google and YouTube community. I'm also a Google guide on Google Maps. So, because I explore the outside as well as the inside, I love landscape photographs. It's what first brought me online was posting my landscapes in my outdoor adventures, and I'd come across such beautiful, beautiful landscapes in my travels, and I would pass those along. And when I became an urban explorer, right, I'd take photographs of my abandoned farms and my abandoned barns, abandoned one room schoolhouses and churches and old homestead, so old that they were made of tongue and groove logs, all caved in. And many times, well, I'm not going to say many times, less than the amount on my hand, I actually fell through the rotting floors. Not badly, but up to my knee at the very least. I have fallen face first into dead, rotting animals when I go into these buildings sometimes. I get a little clumsy, right? I think naturally, I am clumsy. I've gotten a lot better over the course of the years because, again, it's in that consistency of showing up, not just showing up here, but showing up for yourself. And part of showing up for yourself is taking care of yourself, right? So I just became a little bit more safety conscious when I was out in the backwoods or out in an old farm field by myself, because most of my adventures, almost all of them, right, I did on my own. In the beginning, I had a friend who joined me, and a couple of times one of my sisters joined me in my adventures. But, that was my retreat, being out on the road, right? Being out there by myself. It gave me such solace. Like, literally, I wasn't woke to any ideas at the time, right? But there was something about being out there by myself, driving down back roads, right? Wandering around old farm fields and old homesteads and looking out old windowless windows, a window that probably somebody else stood in front of many, many, many times and looked out at the beautiful landscapes. And it did something for me, right? It really did do something for me. And, I was able to make peace with myself, make peace with my past, make peace with a lot of problems that I had, meaning to come to some resolutions, some understandings, and be able to move past them, be able to come here and share those experiences and make friends. And Owen and Andrew here have been with me for, well, I think Owen for sure has been with me since the very beginning. I would have to say Owen was here for 14 years. Andrew came not too far after he did. And they started with me when I was doing the urban exploring, when I was exploring these bad abandoned buildings in these old homesteads and schoolhouses and churches and oh, the road stations. Oh my goodness, and so many different types of churches. If you guys don't know, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and we have lots of denominations in this province that I live in. We are definitely a Heinz 57, but I think most places in North America now are a Heinz 57. I think we've come along very, very well. There's still some stinkers out there, right? But I think for the most part, we kind of showed ourselves well to the rest of the world when it comes to making sure that people understood that it takes all kinds to make the world. And we're not just talking about nationality, right? We're talking about, you know, different religious ideas, different political ideas, different sexual ideas, right? Different genders and stuff. And there was a time, even in my childhood, that was not even tolerated, right? And now we've gone past toleration and we've come to acceptance and welcoming of the diversity of the people that inhabit this great continent, right? Right? That we live in. And I think, because I'm only speaking for our continent because, I'm a participant in what goes on in the continent that I live in. I do every once in a while pop into other countries. Quite often I do, but not in those aspects. It's normally, to look at culture and to look at history and to look at religion. And if you guys have hung out with me or haven't hung out with me for any length of time, I'm non-denominational because I think that's where I best sit because I truly do believe it takes all kinds to make the world. That it's important for me to sit in that idea because in this moment in time, not all religions, right? We're getting more tolerant of the religion and political ideas, but there is still that rubbing like sandpaper, right? So I try to keep these ideas. They're mostly for myself, in that, like I said, in that understanding of myself and be able to bring some resolutions to my own life. And because I come from a dynamic family, there are all kinds of funky ideas going on when it comes to religion. And I would hate to, be prejudiced in those ideas and then get to that point where I'm eliminating and being standoffish. And that's my sister. I'm just going to she knows when I go live. She may be going to the beach tomorrow, but I'll give her a call later. She'll pop in and she'll let me know what that's about. She'll go, "Oh, Cindy's going live now," and maybe she'll just leave me. She'll leave me a message. But if she's going to the beach tomorrow, I'll be all in. I've been in the house for a couple of days with the air conditioner. We are back into the heat wave, you guys. I don't know about you guys, let me know, but I've been downing fluids like crazy and trying to just stay comfortable, right? And I don't know if you guys heard what's going on in Spain. With all the forest fires. Oh my goodness, they've evacuated over 200,000 residents in Spain. Like that is, and it's on not only that, it's in those in the vineyards that are burning down. Like, you know, I've done a little research on the vineyards. I'm not a wine person. I'm not much of a drinker at all, but wine for sure. I'm not a big drinker of of wine, but I have read up a little bit on the wineries and in the orchards and how they protect them. And I read novels and stuff, so to learn a little bit about them is absolutely incredible. And it's because it's enough to get me into a conversation like it's coming into this conversation now. But some of these roots from these grapevines are hundreds and hundreds of years old, right? And I'm hoping that they had a chance to really douse the land before they had to evacuate, because if they can save the roots, right? From what I understand, if they can save the roots from these grapevines, there's a possibility they can resurrect, and these same vines that are hundreds of years old can still produce wine. Maybe not right away, right? But somewhere's down the road, and there's always good things that come out of it. The ash is good for the soil. It'll add a whole lot more nutrients to the dirt. It will give archaeologists a chance to really take a look at the landscape, and maybe there'll be some discoveries when it comes to archaeology. That's always a possibility, right? That, you know, here are a lot of our petroglyphs, glyphs, the indigenous, hundreds and maybe possibly thousands of years ago. They found some caves underneath some buildings downtown. They were building some buildings, and they found some caves down there that were inhabited thousands of years ago, when it was thought that we were under ice, right? That this wasn't a habitable area. But, we used to be more on the tropical side, going way, way, way back. But again, you know, to be able to find petroglyphs and stuff, the ancient history. And that's when, because we're so many trees and bushes and wildlife going on, that a lot of these places are hidden, right? And have been hidden probably again for thousands of years. So it will be really interesting to see what good. I know it's hard to look at the good, but I always try to do that. It always makes the heavy seem less heavy when you can, right, appreciate the good things that come out of the bad things, right? It's that singing in the rain kind of idea, right? The best of times, it's the worst of times. Whistle while you work, right? And yeah, the when the bad times come, they're not fun. They can be heartbreaking and full of grief, right? And they can impact and will impact. But, if you look on the bright side and look for the little good in things, right? Like Andrew getting his knees replaced. He's not looking forward to it. It's not going to be fun. But when it's done, right? If you can look at it that way, when it's done, how amazing it's going to be not to have that pain, to be able to be mobile again, to be able to walk for those bike rides and not worry that he's putting more strain and stress on his limbs. I think that's going to be absolutely amazing, and he'll appreciate it once it's done. But that's what I do. I look at the positive things, and the things are not going well. I mean, the world, right? The world is not always kind, right? And it's not intent that the world is not kind. It's just poop happens, right? And it's part of riding those waves. And I would much rather ride those waves with a little bit of optimism in the outcome, rather than beat myself up Boise me and drag everybody that's coming along for that ride down too, because we know what stress does to us, what worry and heartbreak does to us, right? It makes a bad situation even worse. What does Andrew says here? This Thursday, I see a nurse practitioner. I hope to get some injections into the knees, maybe get some more information about the surgery. A lot of preparations will have to be made. Right. And you're right, Andrew. But in those preparations, don't drive yourself bonkers in that. Just look at it as you gotta get it done, right? You just go through that process. But I know that the more you can get done, the more prepared that you are, and the more you prepare the home, right? Have lots of cans of soup so you can roll those under your feet. Maybe a couple of tennis balls will be good to roll under your feet. Um, what did my sister said? She had a good one. Oh, she did water bottles, and she put the water bottles in the freezer and froze those, and she rolled those under her feet for physio. And yeah, they give you lots of things like if you could pick up a pair of leotards at a thrift store, those are really good because you can put those under your feet and pull both your feet up and give your legs, your knees some exercises, right? That's what my mother did. Did she do that? I think my mother used a skipping rope, though a stretchy skipping rope, and she would do that with her knees, and she would just pump her knees up and down. But my mother was doing mall walks. I think it was about three or 4 weeks after coming out of the hospital. Yeah, Andrew, and let me know if you're going to have both knees done at the same time or if you're going to have two separate operations, right? I always say if it's going to be painful or inconvenient or cause lots of problems or take a lot of time out of my life, right? I would just say, let's just get it all done now, right? But those are my choices, and each one of us get to make our own choices. Maybe Andrew just wants to try one, right, to see if it's an okay operation, and then maybe go in for the second. But my mother had both her knees done at the same time because we knew we would never, ever, and her doctor knew too, we would never get her into the hospital a second time. My mother did not. Funny how she didn't like hospitals and doctors and surgery. She was really quite afraid of them. And yet, her entire life, she worked. Hello, Alice. I got your phone call, but I declined the phone call. Is it private that you were Oh no, I'm not almost done. I just started my live show. I would have loved to have gone with you, Alice, to Walmart. I've been in my house in front of the air conditioning for 2 days. I told everybody, if you, that if you were phoning me to say we're going to the beach tomorrow, I would be all in on that. But I guess you were just phoning to see if I wanted to go to Walmart with you. No, I can't go to Walmart, Alice. I'm doing my live show. It goes till 9 o'clock tonight, so I won't be done. I won't be done till 9. But if you want to drop off a treat, I'm all in for that. I hope your week is going good, Alice. I haven't talked to you all week. Tracy loves the air conditioner. My sister Alice gave my sister Tracy an air conditioner. My sister Tracy has really, really been struggling with her health for the uh, past little while, and my sister Alice gave her the air conditioner for her bedroom, and my sister Tracy has turned it into a luxury palace. She bought some new wall units for the bedroom, new rug, hooked up a TV, and called the cable guy, and she's all set up in there like she's in a luxury hotel. She now spends more time in her bedroom than she does in the living room, and she's been sleeping so much better. She told me the other night that she's been sleeping right through the entire night. So, oh, I'm just teasing. That's okay, Alice. I don't need a treat. No, I'm good, Alice. But give me a call in a couple of days. Maybe we can go thrifting or something, right? I haven't seen you for a little while. I hope everything is going good. I bet you Tom could sure use that air conditioner of yours, though, eh? Poor guy. Yeah, my brother in law, he's suffering right now in the heat wave. Like we're going back into the hundreds for the whole work, the whole week. We're going to be in the hundreds in the Fahrenheit again, right? The high 30s, mid 30s in the Celsius. And yeah, so we're going to have to be careful because we had some thunder and lightning this afternoon. There wasn't any rain, but we did have thunder and lightning, and that's dangerous, especially when there's no rain going on. So we don't want to encourage any forest fires, right? It's bad enough what's going on in Spain and what's going on in Ontario. British Columbia is having issues with the fires, and Donald Trump is threatening to raise the tariffs because of the smoke that's coming into the states. How do you stop that? Like, right? It's not like the right what when Mount St. Helens went off, right? I lived in Vancouver. You couldn't even see out the window like 3 feet for weeks. It was so bad, right? We didn't say, "Oh, you gotta pay extra money. You gotta send the Molly maid to each of our houses in British Columbia and send the teams in there to clean up the dust in our houses," right? The states wasn't responsible for what was going on in British Columbia with all uh, the ash falling all over the place when Mount St. Helens went off. Like, how can we be responsible for the smoke that blows into the states? It just doesn't make any sense. Aw, you're spending too much time, Alice. I haven't even been to the beach this year. We're going camping, um, and it's a music festival that they put on for cancer every year. And my sister and my brother-in-law are. I'm not sure if they're sponsors, but they're sponsors in a way because they promote it on their platforms. And my brother-in-law, he plays in a metal, not in a metal band, rock and roll band, and he'll be presenting on stage that weekend. My sister said she might be singing. I don't hear my sister singing very often. She does a post on her Facebook, and she sings a song a Christmas carol on Facebook every year. She hasn't done that for the past couple of years, but yeah, it'll be nice. It'll be nice to get out of town, and my other sister's lending me her car for a few days, so I'll be able to pack my car up, and right, we'll have a really nice time. Try my new tent out for the first time. That'll be fun. Take my new camp stove with me so I can make a nice breakfast on Saturday morning, and that will actually probably be a protein breakfast because my sister Alice is on a protein diet, so it'll be like my my pork burgers and my sausages, and I don't know, maybe if the money fairy comes in, maybe we'll get some steaks or something and some eggs, right? That'll be a nice breakfast, right? Yeah. It'll be a good time. I'll make sure that you're allowed to stay on Thursday. Oh, well, if I'm allowed to stay on Thursday, maybe I'll go out. Maybe I'll go out on Thursday and help Tom set up and stuff. Yeah, I'll talk to you about that, Alice, for sure. That would be absolutely awesome. Yeah. So it'll be a good time. I will film the event so I'll be able to have something edited for everybody and we'll post that because we don't know what's going on with the forest fires in Ontario. That good chance, very good chance that I'm not going to be going on my trip this September. But this is going to be okay because I will apply myself and save a bunch of money to buy my car for next year, and that will make me happy. And I have to be willing to make sacrifices, right? And so I'm good with that. I'm good with that. We'll adapt and conquer. We'll find other ways to bring the outdoor explorers to my channel. Yeah, we'll make a nice protein breakfast. I'll make something really, really good for us. Yeah, it'll be a good time. Lots of old rock and roll. They play a lot of the heavy rock and roll, but right, rock and roll is rock and roll, and I'm sure lots of people will be dancing and stuff. And there'll be lots of mosquitoes this year because it's so hot outside, right? But, we're going to appreciate the nice, mild winter this year because El Nino is supposed to go right until the mid of January or the end of January. And that's our coldest part of the year is January. It gets super cold here in Manitoba. So it'll be kind of nice if it's pretty mild outside. That'll be really nice, especially when I go for my walks. But then again, it might not be good for my walks because it will be like the milk melt and freeze, and that's not good. It makes things really, really slippery, right? I'd much rather everything was covered in snow than to have the melt and the freeze going on. And I think if we have mild winters, that's what's going to happen. But I hope you get a little bit of news, Andrew, on your operation when you go in for your appointment Thursday. Right at the very least, it'll give you a chance. Before you go to Walmart, Alice, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Yeah, and it'll give you a chance, Andrew, to get ready and get some prep in so that you are comfortable when you get home. You can get right back into that routine, and hopefully you will heal up as fast as my mother did. And in fact, my mother thought she had arthritis all up in her back because her back always hurt her, right? But it was the way she was walking because of the arthritis in her knees that it went all the way up her spine. So it ended up so that she didn't have any arthritis in her spine. And so once she had her knees done, the pain in her back went away too. So I hope if you have like any aches or pains anywhere else in your body, Andrew, that it might be alleviated a little bit. Maybe your hips will feel a little bit better, right? That would be some good news. If you get your knees replaced and then you find out that your hip feels a lot better, that would be kind of awesome. Okay, let me calm down here. Ah, that tastes good. It's fruit punch that I have here. It's really good. Okay, you guys. I was actually today introduced to a new gentleman. His name was David Yonggi Cho. Have any of you heard of him? David Yonggi Cho. He's a Japanese gentleman. I think he's Japanese. He's Christian leader out there. And today was the first time I've ever come across his content at all. And he's a motivational, inspirational speaker out there in the circuits. But when I went to Google him, because I happened onto his content, but when I went to Google him on YouTube to see if he had a YouTube channel, he doesn't have a YouTube channel. Yes, Pastor Cho became well known in the 80s. He pastored a huge church. Oh, he's Korean? He's Korean? Yeah, it was the first time I came across his content, and I really enjoyed sitting and listening to him. And it's kind of neat because in that respect, that his ideas and the way he presents his, I don't know, what do you call that? um I had a friend who told me what it was called, where you talk about it when you it's not preach, it's something else, the messaging or whatever. When he puts his message out there, it's in the same line of understanding of some of the other denominations, whether those denominations are in thought leadership, whether it is in religious ideas or spiritual ideas, right? That it was right in line with what everybody else was talking, right? And I think that's absolutely amazing. But I'm very, very surprised that, the way, that I kind of pride myself in kind of at least introducing myself to different leadership out there that are putting out the good word, that I had never heard of him before. But his content was suggested to me today, and I got into it. But it wasn't his channel, right? It was just somebody else posting his, I don't know, one of his sermons or one of his ideas that he was presenting in a lecture or something. And so I went ahead and YouTubed him to see if I could find him. And I found lots of his content, like tons of his content. So I know he was pretty well known out there, you know, but he doesn't have a channel. He doesn't have a YouTube channel. I find that very curious, especially, when you are so well known, right? When the world knows you. Like I didn't know him, but if he had had a YouTube channel, his content for sure would have come across my path, no doubt about it. And to think that somebody who has, I don't know, a light like he does, has an energy like he does, right? That how far of a reach could he get out there if he was actually online? He is online, but other people are utilizing his work, right? That's his work. And I know a lot of people, they share other people's content and stuff, but that is content that he could be putting out himself to get a further reach, right? I don't know what denomination he is, but um, oh, he is in Korea. Yeah, so you know, he would have a much further reach if he could have thought to grow a little bit in social media, right? And it is never too late. If he started today and he's got a large following already because of what's being shared in his content or the lives that he has touched, because the way he was talking, there's no doubt that he has been able to connect with people. But his his channel would blow up. Like there is no doubt in my mind that he would blow up like Logan Paul. If you guys don't know who Logan Paul is, he's one of the biggest YouTubers, one of the biggest content creators on YouTube. There are people who are much bigger than Logan Paul now, but he's still pretty big. He was on a different, I think it was Twitter or something like that. He was um, on that platform, and then they shut it down. So maybe it wasn't Twitter, it was some other social platform, and it got shut down. And he says, "Okay, we're going to be YouTubers now." And then he went to YouTube, and he brought his entire following on one platform and brought them all to YouTube, and he went right through the roof, and he's been doing so good. Like, he's a multi millionaire right now. Right now he's right in, while he was doing wrestling, and him and his brother used to do skits and joke off and stuff, right? On YouTube. And now he's doing Pokemon cards. He's doing auctions and stuff on Pokemons. But there's a lot more bigger YouTubers than him, right? I follow, and these big followers, big YouTube creators, they've got millions of followers, but they got millions of followers because they were the some of the first content creators on YouTube, right? Blonde Sundial, which is Trisha Paytas. I've been following her for, oh my goodness, for decades now, right? And her content is so different now. And she's a mom of three children, I think, three children she's got now. And she's married, and she has really expanded quite a bit, and she was the ninth YouTube creator on YouTube, right? And then there was, oh my goodness, there's a few of them that I follow. I'm not consistent, like every time they post I'm in there checking out what they're doing, but every once in a while I'll pop in to see how life is going for them, right? And yeah, and their lives have just moved so far ahead when it comes to and they're still here on YouTube. So if they can stay on YouTube since it started, what, they probably started 20 years ago, at least 20 years ago, and they're still here. And I'm on my 14th year. If they can do it, I certainly can, right? I certainly can. Yeah, so I found it to be very, very interesting that, I'm still coming across people. I usually wait to see who comes across my path. I usually let YouTube or Google suggest. Instagram also brings things across my path and people across my path. And I find it I like to be led, right? Because I trust this age of AI learning. I go off and search for myself. But then again, if I watch something that I've chosen and I go off to do some housework, the next thing you know, I'm back on track because YouTube knows what I like to watch, right? What I want to sit in and listen to. I just started delving in very lightly, touching my toes into Dostoevsky, right? Which is a thought leader. And I think he's Russian, right? I think he's Russian. Don't don't quote me on that. But he's pretty heavy duty. But I understand because when I started, sitting into Carl Jung's lessons, right, in psychology and understanding emotions, that I found it very hard to understand, and it couldn't keep my attention, right? So I go in because it got suggested to me, and I just go in for a couple of moments and I go, oh my goodness, right? This is not anything that I understand. It's like a different language. Like most of the time, I'd have to use like a dictionary and Google, what does this word mean, right? Because it was so foreign to me. Now I gobble up Carl Jung like it's popcorn. And I actually really, he's one of my favorite when it comes to understanding emotions. There's another professor that I follow. His name is Sam Batkin, right? And he's a professor in psychology. He teaches psychology to psychologists, right? So he's a professor in that. He's super smart. Like he is one of my favorites, and I could sit and listen to his ideas and his perspectives all day long, right? Super interesting. I really involve myself in what I do, and I get it. I do. But you know what? It's so hot right now. It's not really comfortable to be outside in that heat unless I was going to the beach with my sister Alice. Right? Because then you get the breeze off of the lake, you get the high waves, and I'd be in the water the entire time. But yeah, it is just too hot to even be outside. I'm waiting to go for a bike ride. It won't be for the next week. I'm looking at the Weather Channel. Right? It was supposed to be hot, hot, hot all week, but now they're saying that it's going to be thunderstorms tomorrow. And I thought, well, where did that come from? That wasn't in the forecast all week. And now it says that, oh, now it says tonight we get rain starting at 9 o'clock. There was no rain in the forecast this afternoon. Like, I just don't get it. We control everything, right? This world is so controlled, and yet there is no control when it comes to Mother Nature. That's a truth. And there's something to understand in that, right? There truly is that we don't have all the answers. We're not even close to having all the answers. But yeah, we're getting rain. And now we don't have any rain tomorrow. Let me just double check in there. They said it was going to rain tomorrow. Now the rain's gone tomorrow. Now they're saying it's not going to rain until Thursday. Oh, but 33 Celsius, like, and the humidity from the moisture in the air. So it's not going to be until middle of next week when it's going to cool off. I hope you guys are staying comfortable. I know you get those cool breezes coming off of the Great Lakes that, as well as you're getting the smoke from our forest fires, that you're going to get some moisture and some nice breezes, right? Sweeping into the states that maybe you can cool off that way, and it won't be so hot. That would be something I would wish for you guys for next week. It's only because I'm not a big fan of the heat, right? I'm not moaning and groaning or anything like that, but you think I was, considering I'm on the Weather Channel numerous times during the course of the day. But that's only because the weather is not predictable, right? And I'm looking for a couple of hours where the temperature goes right down and I can go for a walk. Now, there is that option. Let me just check the temperature right here. That, oh, not till 1 o'clock in the morning. It's going to start cooling off a little bit. It'll be in the low 20s starting at 1 o'clock in the morning. That's too late. I'm going to be in bed for at least an hour, right? By 1 o'clock in the morning. So I was going to say, if it cools off really well in the evening, then I could go for an evening walk and maybe go get a cup of coffee or something and just get a nice walk in for the evening, or go for a bike ride. But bike riding at nighttime, right? It's about taking care of myself, and I want to be a little bit cautious, and I don't want to get schmucked by a car because I don't have proper reflectors on my bike, right? Right? So, and it's funny, I think that way because, even a few years ago, I wouldn't have given it any thought. If I wanted to go for a bike ride, I was just hopping on my bike and off I went, right? Lots of times I wouldn't stop at the intersections where, right, I would just expect that the cars would stop, so I would just be able to just drive right through. Now it doesn't matter if those intersections got stop signs or not. I'm going to stop just to make sure that I can get through those intersections just fine. And I never used to be cautious about my well being that way. I'm not saying it's not a good thing. It is a good thing, right? We should all be watching out for ourselves, being that little bit of a self parent for ourselves, right? But then again, it has something to do. Yes, you get more mature. You want to make sure, right? You don't want to hurry the life through. You want to be around. Like I said, I want to be 114 years old. And I got plans, you guys. Today, I looked at new RVs that I hadn't considered. They are old. Well, they're new. They're brand new RVs, but they look like they're from like the days of I Love Lucy, like they're retro style, and they are so cute with the checker floors and the colorful vinyl seating and the outside design of the trailers. They're so cute. So I actually saved a page so that after my live show, I can go watch in. Like, if you guys get a chance to check out, it's called the Jitterbug, is the name of the RV. That was one that I looked at, but I just kind of Googled them because the trend is now popular for retro trailers and RVs. So all the companies out there are making them. So there's lots to choose from. And because there are specific things about my RV that I want, like this is my RV, my list of RVs and trailers, that when I make a final decision. And it's also got the idea of, how the money is flowing in that moment, right? We're working on the car first, putting money away for that car so that I can have a vehicle, no ifs, ands, or buts for next year. My rent is locked in until late spring, in actuality, till May. So I'm going to be making some good money starting in November. So I'm hoping to be able to put away at least $400 a month in savings towards a vehicle. Of course, it's not going to be a new vehicle, but it'll be a good used vehicle so that I can get back on the road properly. And of course, it's going to have to be an RV because, I got to load it up with camping gear, right? But this first list that I have on the first page are the specifics that I'm looking for when it comes to the trailer that I want, right? And of course, the trailer will most likely be a used trailer too. But you never know what comes across your path. I might have that opportunity somewheres down the road. I have no idea how, because no way I could think of in my family is the gambling, and I don't gamble anymore. I don't even do lottery tickets or scratch and wins. I don't even do, I bet you. I don't even do that because that's part of my addiction recovery in gambling, right? And I don't ever want to break that promise to myself. That gambling, it almost took me down, right? It destroyed my marriage. I became a fibber for quite a few years, and I distasted lying, but I would have to cover my butt up as to why I didn't have money, what I did with my tip money and stuff when I was working in the bars and nightclubs. That was terrible. That was guilt and shame is something that I don't do well with, and I felt so much guilt and shame in having to see, I call it fibbing because it doesn't sound as bad as lying, but that's what I did. I was lying and covering my butt as to what I was using my money in, right? And that was the worst part about my gambling. In the moment, gambling is fun, right? It's lots of fun. But when you go home with no money and you've spent your wage from the next day, even let alone the money that you made in tips during the night before. And, I had to do payday loans. I had to do payday loans and I got addicted to payday loans. I beat myself up terribly in the way I talked about myself, the way I felt about myself, that there isn't a chance, not a chance, zero possibility that I will ever gamble again. So if whoever, whenever is going to try and get that money to me, right? The word's out there. Don't even try to get me to buy a lottery ticket or a scratch and win. I still remember my lucky numbers. I don't know about you guys if you have lucky numbers, but when I used to buy lottery tickets, I had lucky numbers. If you want to buy my ticket, right, with my lucky numbers, I can say them off by heart: 9, 11, 14, 23, 27, 47. Those were my lucky numbers. And I would always, almost every week, buy a lottery ticket thinking, oh, I'm going to win the lottery. Do you know how many people win the lottery? And do you know how many people buy lottery tickets every week? How come you think those lottery pots get as high as like $60 million or $100 million? It's not because, there's 100 people buying lottery tickets. That's not the case. It's a business, right? It's a business. So if there's a $60 million pot, there are lots and lots of lottery tickets being sold every week. I know with my sisters and my mom, they used to love to get their Christmas cards and their birthday cards, and they'd have great big stacks of scratch tickets where they would just scratch them all day long just to see if they won any money, right? I was never into the scratch and wins very much. I would do them every once in a while, but I did buy the lottery tickets. But when I stopped gambling, I stopped cold turkey. Like I said, I don't even say that phrase, I bet you, I'll bet you $20. No, that's gambling. I won't do that, right? I won't buy scratch and wins. I won't buy lottery tickets. I'm done with the gambling, and I know that as a for sure, right? And I spend a lot of time watching these gamblers, and they put their life right down the toilet. And it makes me really frustrated because they represent themselves as making lots of money on casinos and in Vegas and Reno and stuff. And they don't really um, voice and tell the truth about how much money they actually spend, how they really do go and turn their life into a disaster. And they gain followers, like people follow them online on YouTube and stuff, and it's disastrous, right? And they're encouraging people to gamble. And yeah, for myself, never ever will I gamble again. Um, Andrew says, I don't gamble, but if I somehow came into a large amount of money, I would get myself an investment counselor. I would get myself an investment counselor after I got my car and my RV. Why? because an investment counselor would say, no, invest your money. And when you make money in your investments, then you can get your trailer and your car, right? But these are my dreams and my goals. And also, I look at it in a way as getting back on the road and doing those outdoor explores. And so I look at it as an investment in my channel, something I need to invest in my channel. Like I would also have to buy new camera gear. I'd want a good camera, right? I think I get one of those Pocket 3s, or no, they have Pocket 4s now. I get a Pocket 4, and oopsie, I would get a Pocket 4, and I would be back out on the road that very same weekend as getting my vehicle back on the road, and I would be out there again, and we would have the back road explorers going again, right? But yeah, gambling, I'm done with that. Yeah, I'm done with that. And it's funny I say that because I was a gambler, I would have to say, for about 25 years. I started in 1980 gambling. When my husband came back on a tour of Croatia, he took me on holidays to the East Coast, and we rented a car, and we did New Brunswick and Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and PEI, and we did a lot of traveling. And when we took the ferry over to PEI, the slot machines were already in PEI, right? They weren't in Manitoba yet, but they were in PEI already, and they were on the ferry. And me and my husband had just spent the last of our money for the rest of our trip. We had no more money left, right? And I had $20 or something, and I put it in the I put it in a slot machine on the ferry, and I think I won like $600 or $700, and that was just enough money for us to have a nice last few days before we hopped a plane and went back home, right? And that got me hooked. That rush of saving our holidays, and that was what kept me hooked, was that. And then a couple of months later, after I got home, the slot machines showed up in the hotel that I worked at. And as soon as they showed up, I got hooked. They got me really good. They got me really good, right? I'm surprised I was able to hold on to my job as long as I did, right? Because, they were saving money because I would never start my shifts on time because they'd say, oh, it's not busy enough, Cindy. You can, right? Because the other girls wanted the tip money and stuff. Oh, don't worry about it. We're good for another hour. And so I would just sit the slot machines before my shift, and I would just blow all my money. And then I would have to bust my bum to make sure that I had enough money at the end of the night to pay off my float, right? Because I would spend my float too. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. I'm glad I don't gamble anymore, right? But that's what it is. It could have been anything. It could have been drinking, it could have been shopping. I could have been a compulsive cleaner. I could have been uh uh well, there's lots of addictions out there in the world, right? And everybody, if it's something that you do consistently and it hurts your life, meaning it takes you away from friends and family, it hurts you financially, it will make it so that you have the possibility of losing your job, your friends, right? You're standing in a community. That's an addiction, right? And it's funny because those are all terrible things that happen to you when you're in addiction, right? But the thing is, we get addicted so that we have a way to cope, Right? Isn't that funny? And then after we're addicted into what we're coping in to help make us feel better and whatever our life is divvied out to ourselves, we have just added all these other things into our life. And it's that stress and that worry and that way we beat up on ourselves, right? When we fail ourselves, that it makes it so we delve into the addiction even more. That's why it was impossible for me to quit my addiction. I'm trying to think now how I quit in my addiction. Oh, COVID hit, right? That was the help that I needed. That was a little bit of time, right? Because everything got shut down for at least a few months, right? There was no gambling in the casinos and the bars and stuff. They just shut everything down. And I gambled every single day, right? And that was a little bit of help that whoever, whatever, sent down to me so that I had a fighting chance to quit. And once I had that little bit of time in not gambling and maybe recognizing that I had money in my pocket again, that I didn't have to lie, that things like was starting to feel a little bit better, that my YouTube channel wasn't suffering because I was on my YouTube channel. That was my priority in my life. I wasn't giving up my YouTube channel for anything, right? And so once I started stopped gambling, I recognized that it helped in taking away that alleviation of how I'm going to keep my channel going because now I had a few funds for camera gear and gas for the vehicle and making sure that my payments were on time and stuff. So yeah, I got a little help in that. I didn't do it all by myself. Even when I quit smoking, you guys, I quit smoking. Oh, it's got to be 30 years ago now. It's been a long time that I stopped smoking. I stopped smoking before I stopped playing video lottery terminals, before I stopped gambling. Um, and it was cigarettes just got to be too expensive, right? I just couldn't afford to smoke anymore. And I just mentioned to my sister when she asked me what I wanted for Christmas, I says, I want to quit smoking, right? And I didn't think anything of it, but then at Christmas time, when I got my Christmas stocking, she had the patches in there, all three stages of the patches for me. And the patches are not cheap, right? And you have to take the same patch for 2 weeks in each stage. So it was very expensive, almost a couple $100, I would think, to get the patches. And I didn't want to put them to waste. And the very first time I put that patch on to quit smoking, I quit smoking. I never had one cigarette after that day of starting on the patch. And I tried to quit many, many, many times and didn't even make it 24 hours without a cigarette. But that time, in going on the patch, I quit smoking cold turkey. It's not cold turkey because the patch is giving you nicotine, right? But then you step down and you take a lower dose of nicotine in these patches until finally those patches don't have any nicotine in them at all. And then what's the point of taking the patches? You're just spending money just to put a patch on your arm, right? And I never struggled. Not once did I struggle when I tried to quit smoking when I was on the patch. It was very easy when I went on the patch to quit smoking. I'm so glad though that I didn't do the nicotine gum because there are people that I know that decided, well, you can't smoke in public anymore. I'm not going to smoke cigarettes. So they decided to chew nicotine gum and now they're addicted to the nicotine gum, right? They're not addicted to the gum, they're addicted to the nicotine in the gum. And that's even worse because that could give you like throat cancer, right? That stuff is nasty. Yeah, yeah. But addictions, right? I don't know how I've been able to peel them off, but they hit me. I have a very addictive personality. These addictions come into my life, and you know, I've been able, after a time, after a very long time in some cases, that gambling went on for 20 years. The smoking cigarettes went on for 15 or 20 years also that I smoked cigarettes. I started smoking cigarettes late in life. I was 27 years old when I started smoking cigarettes. I thought it might help me lose weight. These these mentalities, right? That we have. I don't know what I was thinking, but I got hooked on smoking cigarettes right off the hop, right? But I managed to give up smoking, managed to give up gambling, managed to give up the payday loans. I managed to stop crunching ice, but there was always a price because these addictions caused me problems, right? The cigarettes cost lots of money. There's the fear of getting lung cancer. Um, they're stinky all the time, right? And then the gambling, well, that was a disaster all the way around, right? Because I spent my whole life at the machine. It was a social issue at that point because I gave up on everybody, right? The lottery terminal, the slot machine became my friend. Isn't that crazy thinking there? But when I quit gambling, then I made it a mission to get off the payday loans because that was really hard to get off the payday loans because I put myself in such great debt that it was going to take time to get out of debt. And I didn't want to take the time to get out of debt. But what choice do you have when you're in debt except to stay on the payday loans? So I just waited for a big income tax return, a big chunk of money to come into my life. And as soon as that big chunk of money came into my life, I paid everything off and I said, never again. And I never took another loan from those payday loans ever again. That was a silly thing to do too. But there were other things. I was addicted to cough drops forever, for years, right? At least 5 years I was addicted to the halls, right? The eucalyptus is what's addictive. The menthol is what's addictive to the cough drops. And then I was addicted to crunching ice, and the halls and the crunching ice destroyed my teeth. Like I spent so much money to keep my teeth in good shape because I crunched ice. Like I crunched ice. Rah, 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 rah. Like, oh my goodness. And I smelled like a medicine cabinet. I don't know how my husband could have given me kisses because I just smelled like a medicine cabinet with all the cough drops I was always munching on. And I didn't just keep those in my mouth, pop in my mouth and just suck on those things. No, I crunched on those like I was crunching on the ice. Oh my goodness, I really did a job. But these are stories that I can tell now, right? As the evidence and as the example for others that it's not impossible. Okay, it wasn't alcohol and it wasn't like heroin or anything like that, right? Those are hard ones to overcome. But mine were hard too, right? Mine were hard for myself too. And yet I managed. It took some time. Took some determination. It took the little bit of help from whoever or whatever, right? Even if it was my family, right? Just like I said, with COVID hitting, and I managed to get off the gambling when I couldn't go to the casinos anymore or go to the bar to gamble. And then again, quitting smoking. My sister put the patches in my Christmas stocking, so I had a little bit of help there. Yeah, really grateful for that. Addictions are a terrible thing, but our addictions are something that almost everybody has, right? It might be a really, really bad habit that you have, that it's easier to say that it's a habit. Like I said, I said, "Oh, I'd call fibs," when fibs are just actually lying, right? Where I went back to lying and wasn't just telling fibs. And I was just saying the word fibs because it just sounds like it's minor, right? And it's not minor. They were lying, right? And it's a bad thing, like with bad habits, right? That these are addictions, right? Hoarding is an addiction, right? And I don't know if you guys watch Curiosity Incorporated, but he started a new series. He bought another abandoned house, and when he opened up the door, while there was a Lamborghini and a BMW, I think. No, a Ferrari and a BMW in the backyard. There was a motorboat in the backyard. There was an RV trailer home, motor home in the backyard. When he opened up the back door, there was a cat, right? A live cat because the person had passed away. So they left the cat in the house while they were trying to find a home for the cat. But there were hundreds in every single room in this house were guitars and metal guitars and drum sets, hundreds and hundreds. And so he bought the entire contents of the property. So now he just started the series yesterday. So if you guys want to watch a good series in Curiosity Incorporated, I know a couple of people who hang out on my channel watch his videos. He's got another abandoned house that he bought, and it's going to be a good one because he sends everything to auction, and it'll be interesting when he pulls those cars out of the backyard, and if they start up, he's going to be super happy that he's got those cars, and we'll see how much profit he makes on that property that he just bought outright. But the thing is, he's got to clean the entire house, and it was a hoarding situation. Like this guy hoarded guitars, right? Yeah, it was pretty bad. You get yourself an investment counselor. I would get an investment counselor too, a big chunk of, well, I would get a money manager, right? Because I do work in social media, and I would want to invest in my channel, right? So I would want a manager that would help me finance, because I would need somebody. I would need a video editor so I could just go out there and film, right? And then I would have an editor to do that. I probably want a YouTube manager also. And then again, like I said, I'd want the trailer, and I want a good vehicle that I can tow the trailer. And I would do my provincial park tours, right? And I would do state park tours too. Right? I would basically go live on the road, right? And I wanted to be a YouTube, I would be a YouTube creator on road. But also I would want to be doing like networking. I would want to do workshops, and I would want to go to seminars, right? And meet some of my favorite thought leaders and shine in some of the topics that I'm interested in, and I think I excel in, right? And I practice the craft, right? Practice that craft, share the craft, right? With people who are doing the same thing as what I'm doing, because that's part of my dream, right? Is to help people who are helping others, right? That's why I'm so grateful for my caregivers here, right? That uh, that's why I'm so into my caregivers here, so that uh, because I give in what I learn, what I come in my understandings, great content that I've come across, and just in the outdoor explorers that give people that sense of feeling that I get when I'm out in the field, right? Because I know lots of people aren't able to get out on the road, to get out into Mother Nature for lots of different reasons, right? So I share that way. But I want to help people who are out there, right? Like this gentleman that I happened on to today. Just get back in so I can say it. I think it's Reverend or Pastor Cho. There he is. Uh, oh, just somebody else who's got his channel. But yeah, Pastor David Cho. I don't know his whole name, but yeah, to be able to mingle with people who do the same thing I do in thought leadership, I think that would be pretty cool, right? That would be pretty cool, right? The whole idea is exploring the inside and the outside is that inside is understanding emotions, working in mindset, right? In working in different perspectives that, because people stay in their same networks, they're not privy to information from all kinds of thought leadership because they're just focused on this one religion or this one spiritual idea or this one cultural idea or community idea that they don't expand out of their own little network. So they're not privy to all that amazing gifts of information that are out there in the world that I could actually introduce them, right? Because we're all in the same mindset networks, right? So yeah, that would be fun for me to be on the road and do my YouTube videos and still explore the inside and the outside and network a little bit. Like I said, the workshops and the seminars, that would be lots of fun, right? To be able to rub shoulders with people that I appreciate, right? Like in my understandings and in my learning, that are people that are like me. That would be lots of fun. Um, I've been thinking about Yonggi Cho, but maybe he uses David as a Western name. I may have been thinking of a different person. No, Yonggi, I didn't know his middle name there, but you're right. Yonggi Cho. David Yonggi Cho. I think there was one more name that he had in there too. Doctor. Was it Doctor? Yeah, Doctor David Youngie Cho. Yeah, I think that's what they called him. But he is a Christian pastor. Um, but again, his content had never come across my path before, and I've been in thought leadership for a decade now, right? And so you would think that his content would have come across my path, that his ideas, maybe his ideas did come across my path, but they were presented by somebody else, right? That I might have thought that they were somebody else's ideas because his ideas are right in line with a lot of thought leadership that I delve into. But no, you're 100% right, Andrew. It was David Youngie Cho. Where did you hear of him, Andrew? Where did you come across his content or his ideas? Was it a book, or did he come and do thought leadership on like in a church television show or something? Or did you see him in an interview? Like, how did he come across your path? Yeah, I was quite shocked that I had never heard of him before. And it kind of makes me wonder, you know, who haven't I come across when it comes to thought leadership? Like, how many other people? out there in the world have I not stepped into their content? Because I'm all over the place. I even do some of the yogis like Sanguru and Muji, right? I've done some of the the old ones that have been passed away for a long time in their thought leadership. Uh, um, Uganda. I don't remember. I'm not very good at pronouncing names, right? But there are lots of people out there that I delve into, and they're right, and it's not that their religious perspectives or their spiritual perspectives are resonating with me, right? Because somebody's religious ideas and religion and faith that belongs to everybody individually, right? You know, I don't consider myself a faithful Christian, but I would have to say you might think I was in the content that I was in today because there was a lot of Christianity going on in the content that I was sitting in the conversations that I was sitting in today. Today actually I was a lot in Mary Magdalene and Sophia, right? And a lot. Well, I've been dabbling in their content for a very long time, especially because it ties in with my passion for history, and then those manuscripts, those scrolls that were discovered with those missing books, like Mary Magdalene's book that was eliminated out of the Bible. Like the Vatican decided what what um, what would what prophets books were going to be in the Bible, and anything that didn't um, go against their beliefs and their ideas and what they wanted to present to the world, because they wanted the world to be followers and not leaders of themselves, right? And a lot of the books and manuscripts that were taken out of the Bible and eliminated and actually banned so badly that these nomads in the desert in these villages that were safekeeping these manuscripts felt it was so important to put them into jars and to bury them, right? And they were buried for like over 1,500 years. Like some of these manuscripts were like from the second century, right after Christ's death, and because they were Gnostics, right? So they were the Christian faith, but they were expanded in their faith, and of course, right in the early second century, that women didn't have a place in the world, did they? Right? They were the followers of their husbands. They were not considered high value. Now, I recently found out that there were religions out there that, like the Sikhs, they think very highly in the capacity of what women can bring to the table, right? That they consider the women just as equal as the men in the Sikh religion. Also, the Jewish religion, right? The Jewish faith, they have different roles. The women have different roles, but they're not thought of as less than. But in the second century, right, the Vatican, they didn't think much of women. And they didn't want to have a book in the Bible that had a woman have a say, right? To have a standing in the Bible in any way. So they said, okay, Mary can go, right? And so they just wrote Mary right out of the Bible. And she had her own books already, right? Like the 13 repentances. Like, she had a standing when it came to Christianity. I mean, she was Jesus's favorite, right? And Peter had a big problem with Mary Magdalene because she was a woman, right? And he thought women were beneath the standing of men. But there are faiths out there that consider women equals, and I think there's something in the fact that it's come to the surface, even though they were found in the 1940s, right? That they were not deciphered until recently. But that's a good thing because women are more equal now. They have a better footing, a better standing when it comes to society and a standing in the world as women, right? So this is perfect timing for those manuscripts to surface, right? Especially it's this age of Aquarius where, women are coming to the forefront now. That it's perfect timing. And maybe that will do a little bit of healing. Maybe there'll still be a little bit of conflict in it. Like I said, I told you, was it last week or the week before, Andrew, about what happened in 2016, where the Vatican actually apologized and reinstated Mary Magdalene's standing when it came to Christianity, right? Do you think that was a coincidence? No, they knew those manuscripts were in the process of being deciphered, right? That they were going to be able to get a good understanding as to the role that Mary Magdalene actually played when it came to Christianity. That it was just this idea of women being less than, right? And I think that's a good thing. It the Vatican's got a lot of respect coming from me now, and right, like I said, I'm not a religious person. Right, when it comes to Christianity or being a Catholic or a Protestant or whatever, that doesn't mean too much to me, right? It's not values that we're all supposed to treat each other well, but everybody has a right to their own faith. But when you can course correct in something that you got wrong, and I think Christianity, and especially in the past few decades, they really have done a good job, right? They really had to bow their heads because there was a lot of shame in the Christian religion and what they got away with, right? And I think, you got to respect the Christian religion because they're course correcting, they're making right their wrongs, when the priest did bad things with the kids, or this idea of shaming women when they had abortions. And then they're right, they're still iffy when it comes to same-sex marriages and stuff, but they're a lot more tolerant, and I believe it starts with tolerance. And it has to start with tolerance, otherwise we war with each other if we don't at least start it with the tolerance before we get to that accepting. Because if you do accepting first when these strong ideas are out there, you're only forcing ideas down into people's throat. And that's what agitates and frustrates and causes people to war with each other, right? So I appreciate that the Vatican has been doing a lot of course correcting. You know, it's hard to say we were wrong. I was wrong. And if somebody can do that, that gets a lot of respect out of me. It makes it easier to forgive, right? To give second chances or third chances, even because you could see the effort and the actual shame in having to choke up that admittance, right? And the idea that they're making right their wrongs. So I can appreciate the Catholic faith because they've done a lot, right, in making right their wrongs. Of course, wrongs are wrongs. You can't take back. Once you've done something terrible, you've done something terrible, and there's nothing you can do in making that right. Not even saying, I'm sorry, right? Please forgive me. Yes, you can say you're sorry, and yes, somebody can forgive you, but that wrong is still there, and that damage is still there, and that damage is passed down from generation to generation, and that hurt the Catholic faith in all of that coming to the surface, right? But it had to come to the surface. So I give respect where respect is due for sure. Okay, before we head off, you guys, I'm not a follower of Dr. Cho myself, but heard about him a lot in the 80s. Some of his teachings has been controversial because of possibly not really being consistent with the Christian doctrine. Oh, interesting, Andrew, because it actually said that he was a Christian practitioner. But I guess there's all kinds of Christianity out there in the world, right? There most definitely is. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna say my good nights tonight. Thank you so much for coming in and hanging out with me. We'll see if my sister Alice brings me a treat from Walmart. She might. You never know. And I'll be back next Sunday if you want guys ever want to hang out with me. I do Monday to Friday. I do my other live show. What's my good cheer? It's a little bit heavier than what this. I try and keep this light, but we get into some interesting conversations here, and that's what I appreciate. And I appreciate that the people who hang out with me chat just as much as I do. It's a little bit of a break for myself sometimes. Okay, you guys, you have a great night. Thank you again. Owen, thank you as always, right? Andrew, keep an eye. I know it's you have to take a walk to get to the post office, but let me know when you get your card. Everybody, have a great night, and we'll see you next week.